What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Dummy Wormy, and it's Christmas Day, the time of recording this, and that means it's time for Doctor Who Christmas Special Review, Joy to the World. Before we get too far into this is probably going to be a very fast-paced review. I can ultimately tell you the plot's a complete and total mess. Points don't make any logical sense. There's tons of conveniences, tons of holes, things that are just all around nonsensical. But what I will tell you, there are at least two plot points I find actually compelling and interesting. We will get to them and I will tackle them. Ultimately though, I can safely say Stephen Moffat, superior writer than Russell T Davies, because at least when it comes to Stephen Moffat, he has written at least the two decent episodes from season 1, both Boom and the Christmas special, and they're all around not very offensive, just they don't make logical sense when you actually start breaking them down. And I will also say, there's stands out there already ranting and raving about this episode and saying just how awful it is. It's not a great episode, but the part they're most annoyed with is the part that I actually find to be probably the most wholesome bit in this episode, and we will obviously discuss that. But as we usually do, guys, we gotta hop right on over here to the actual episode. Again, I'll just quickly rush through stuff and get to points that I actually think are interesting. For those of you who might have seen the trailer up to the lead up to this episode, you know that this is pretty much the starting point where we're jumping through war-torn Britain, in which the Yahtzees are doing their blitzkrieg on everything. You see two old people talk about how everything's going to hell and back. Everything's basically destroying. Part of the city's already destroyed where two lesbians live. Not that big of a story. And then the doctor comes in with a ham and cheese toastie, asking if people want a ham and cheese toastie, and then leaves. That's pretty much it. And then we then come to the Orient Express, where we see a young woman sitting at the Orient Express reading Murder on the Orient Express. I'm already gonna jump the gun to this because you find out at the very end of the episode that she's actually a lesbian, so not that important, honestly, but they just had to shove it in there at the very end. I'm just gonna get there. Hey, lesbian woman on train. Doctor comes in, asks her if she wants a ham and cheese toastie. She doesn't even know what the heck's going on, and he just walks out. We then get to base camp on what I believe is Mount Everest. They just say it's mainly a base camp for a bunch of climbers, and this is where some of the really nonsense gets up, because at least in the past two areas, there's a random door. This is a tent, and the doctor just comes through a random area of the tent asking this group of mountain climbers if they want a ham and cheese toastie. Doesn't really make much sense, but this episode really doesn't make much sense. Well, then we get to our good, lovable individual known as Joy pulling up to a hotel on Christmas Day to check into a hotel for Christmas. They tell us later on is because she's actually a very sad individual and she does not like to be at home on Christmas for plot points that we will get to. That honestly, I think they fumble the ball on, but I think it is an important plot point that people should actually be more willing to tackle in the modern era. Well, she gets into her room. You get our receptionist, who's named Anita, checking her in, and Anita is a part of the story that we will also be getting to. And she's going around doing her thing, unpacking, flies buzzing around. She says, "Welcome to my room on Christmas," yada, yada, yada. And then as she's, I guess, pulling out a hairdryer for no apparent reason, a Solarian comes into the door carrying a briefcase and is acting like he's being held up at gunpoint because she's now aiming the hairdryer at him. All for the doctor to then just come in and say, "Ham and cheese toastie, smile," and then the intro begins. Yeah. Again, for those of you who saw like the special trailer that started for the whole charity events and stuff that was going on, that's pretty much all that you already know about. You already know that this is going to be a part of the plot. We already saw this within trailers. We know where this is going, and it's not shocking. And then when we actually get to the main event, it's so not, it's just a mess. So we start up in London in 4042, obviously the future, not really surprising. We come into the hotel, which is the Time Hotel. Again, not super surprising. You already know this based on the trailers. And we watch as the TARDIS appears. The doctor comes out with an entire robe on with two mugs. walks up to go get milk. And as he's doing that, a man in the background with the exact same briefcase the Solarian had is checking into a room, preferably on the 3rd floor. Then all of a sudden, our helper here, buddy, known as Trev, shows up, says to the doctor, all these refreshments are only for guests. Are you a guest here? The doctor says no, he comes with his own room, yada, yada, yada. They start walking around having a discussion. Trev asks, is the TARDIS a toilet? And then doctor says, no, do you ever know anybody to go into the toilet with 2 mugs? And Trev goes like, to each their own. It's all stupid, boring nonsense that I'm just gonna keep moving on from. And then the doctor takes one look down and realizes, oh my gosh, I have 2 mugs when I should only have 1 mug, and hands off 1 mug to Trev because he's not used to having to say goodbye to people, and he's not used to traveling alone right now. Even though, I mean, you've traveled alone before and you just said goodbye to Ruby, but you're not actually the doctor, you're Shuri Gatwa, so it's that. By the way, the doctor also did say he has special like calibration system to track down on actual milk for his coffee, and that's what brought him here. So, okay, it kind of stupid how he got there was just for milk, but okay. He hands off a thing to Trevor, goes inside, randomly changes and says, why the heck am I changing? What did I see that was so interesting to me? Okay, well, we're gonna hop on out there, and then we start following around the guy with the briefcase. Trevor and him talk, and ultimately the doctor lies to him, says that he's from up high, starts figuring stuff out, and basically Trevor's just some airheaded individual that is very lackluster, doesn't really have character depth, although it really does come off like Shuri Gatwa wants to plow him or get plowed by him. It really comes off that way. And ultimately, they just start walking around. They start trying to figure out what's going on with the guy with the briefcase and talking about him. And they decide that the smart idea is going to be, Trevor, you follow him and tell me where he goes. I'm gonna go on ahead with a ham and cheese toasty that he literally just ordered and stuff. And he specifically says, hey, this is what we're gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna go try to beat him to his point. You're gonna go watch him and tell me when he leaves, because Trev has a psychic implant put into his head that he could just communicate with everybody, and that's how they're going to communicate back and forth. Okay, although the problem here is the doctor says the best way to tail somebody is to be there before they're actually there. Problem is, if you're tailing somebody, you don't know where he's going. So you yourself only know that he's going to the 3rd floor. You have no idea where the dude's planning on going at the end of all this. So what's even going on here? It doesn't really make sense. So that's the whole, you know, going around to random rooms at the beginning. He's trying to figure out who wants a ham and cheese toasty out the blue. No real reason. So, okay, that's the whole plan. They're going to go off and do that, and that's going to work. We then come back over to the guy with the actual briefcase. He goes into the bar area to, you know, drink, and he says, the star will blossom and the flesh will rise to the bartender. He puts the briefcase on the counter and says, can you help hold on to this for me? And ultimately, the briefcase unlocked. Its little handcuffs around the one dude, cuffs itself over to the bartender, and the dude says, okay, everything's good. I'm gonna now be in charge, because now the bartender is magically under its control and also has weird eyes that are like lizards and blink inwards and not normal. Why does it do that? I don't know. The story actually never explains why the briefcase is jumping from person to person to person, and why people's eyes magically start blinking like they're lizards or reptilians of some sort. It doesn't really answer that. It just says, here you go. Don't know why. Moving on. Science fiction-y. We now have Trev outside the bar area. The bartender pulls him in and does the exact same thing to Trev, and then we watch as the bartender and the dude in the beginning with the suit and the briefcase, they both disintegrate into magical space dust. Why? I don't know. I don't even know why they chose Trev to grab the bag or take the briefcase or whatever. They just decide to do it. And minor spoilers, although this is a review, they never explain why it's going from person to person to begin with. They don't. So, okay. We then cut over to Shuri, obviously going from room to room like we saw at the very beginning. We watch as Trev then walks up to the main desk, goes up to the Silurian guy, and asks, hey, are you, the boss here? And the Silurian guy goes like, yes, I am the boss, Trev. You already know that. And then the briefcase does the exact same thing to the Silurian. Why? I don't know. They don't tell us. If you at least said, hey, it's trying to find its way to get to the proper destination, and obviously taking over the boss would mean that he has access to the entirety of the hotel, that makes sense. But you don't even tell us that. You're just, hey, we're just gonna jump from person to person to person for no apparent reason. So that happens. We then have obviously Shooty's looking at stuff. We watch a Silurian guy walks up and goes into ultimately Joy's bedroom as he's also watching as Trev is dying and turning into space dust. Silurian goes into Joy's room for, again, no apparent reason, just enters room. Trev dies, is what it is. Got back to the very beginning where Doctor walks in, Silurian's there, nonsense, okay? And yes, real nonsense unfollows because Joy starts freaking out saying, hey, you're in my room, what's going on here? What's happening? Silurian's brief, like, handcuff falls off. It starts telling the doctor, hey, take the briefcase. Oh, it will be revealed if you take the briefcase because we sense that there's much power inside of you, so you must take the briefcase. And they have this dumb back and forth where it's like, hey, take the briefcase. I kind of want to take the briefcase, but I don't want to take a briefcase. Joy's just there. Nobody's actually listening. And it ultimately boils down to, hey, this is like most normal men. They don't ever listen to us. And also Anita's in the background, and Anita basically says, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, they start doing this weird back and forth and bashing on men out of the blue. So there's that. Ultimately, this keeps going on as then, as you can tell by the closed captioning, Joy says, wait, are you two guys doing this role play game things? I've heard about hotels like this, trying to imply that they're gay, but it wouldn't really shock me if Shooty Gatwa did want to actually get this lizard dong up inside him. So they start continue the back and forth of take the briefcase, I won't take the briefcase, take the briefcase, I won't take the briefcase. And ultimately, Joy grabs the briefcase. She's now connected to it, and she looks over at the Silurian guy and says, okay, you're gonna die now, so you should probably lay down because it's gonna be disintegrated, and yeah, that is what it is. And we then have this really awkward moment where Shurigatwa all of a sudden has this weird deep connection to the Silurian. Again, the doctor probably would actually care about the Silurian dying out of the blue and try to fight for him. But the thing is, Shooty doesn't actually try to fight for him. He just starts talking like he knows the dude, and like we're supposed to be impacted by the fact that the Silurian's dying. He's saying, you're strong, you're mighty, you're from this powerful race. Oh, all this stuff's awesome, and you're amazing. And then, I have music going on. The Silurian guy's dying. He ends up dying, and Shooty Gatwa cries, and then out of the blue, Joy literally says, man, that was sad. That was kind of sad, wasn't it? And here's the thing. Plots like that, I hate, because I didn't know who the Silurian guy names is. I just knew he was the manager of the hotel. Randomly dies out of the blue. Shurigatwa was acting like this is such a deep, impactful moment watching the dude die. The story's literally trying to make you care about this dude. They're saying all this great things about him. I don't know who he is. I didn't know his name. I know he's Silurian. I know that he's the manager of the hotel, and he's dying. But they're doing this thing trying to make you feel emotions for somebody you know nothing about. And then at the end, you have Joy say, man, that was kind of sad, wasn't it? All that connects to ultimately me meaning nothing to me, but you're trying to say that it should mean something to me. I don't like that. That's you telling me how to feel instead of the show actually bringing these emotions about. And the thing is, I know Stephen Moffat can actually write to have emotions come out, because in a later plot point that, again, I think they fumbled the ball on, it does actually strike a chord, and a really painful chord, when you actually start sitting there and thinking about it. But we keep moving on. The doctor starts talking to Joy, finds out that Joy's kind of under the psychic control now, trying to do the thing that the briefcase tells him to do. So he then takes the briefcase, opens it up, and we see the inside, and you see the little golden ball, you see all the stuff, and then the briefcase says, hey, if you don't close it within 20 seconds, the person who is currently connected to the briefcase will be disintegrated, and it will be very painful. So once discovering that she could die, the psychic hold on Joy starts to lessen, and Joy starts freaking out, like, I could die, you really need to close this. I could die, close it. So this is all going on within the 20 seconds. The doctor really doesn't seem interested in closing it, which doesn't feel like the doctor. So again, this was Shooty Gatwa, not the doctor. Ultimately, Joy closes it, says, you were more than willing to sacrifice me. He's like, well, you're all fine now. You see what's going on here? It's awful storytelling at the rate of which things are just happening. And this is one of the biggest criticisms of modern Who. Things happen for the sake of things happening, and you never actually tell us why. And we're about to get to some of the worst parts of this entire episode. So, as things continue, closing the briefcase alone doesn't actually secure it. Magically, something pops up, says that you now need to type in your special little code in order to make sure that you actually close it correctly. Why? I don't know, but it does. So now they're freaking out. They're realizing, I don't have a code. You don't have a code. We don't know what's going to happen. And then the doctor starts talking about how the time hotel works and how it's all like linked all together. So when theoretically he then says, come in, and guess who enters? Ncuti Gatwa's doctor comes in, tells him what the code is, saves the day, sort of, and then says, okay, we can't both be here. So I'm going to leave because I'm going to help her with the future. You're going to stay because now you need to get the code because now we're in this time loop and you need to get the code. So in order to get the code, you're going to have to go the long way around as I continue on. So that ultimately happens. Door closes. Ncuti 1 is now dealing with stuff and he's freaking out. He's angry. This is also where we get the you leave everybody behind. This is why nobody likes you. You're so cryptic, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, now we have Ncuti Gatwa staying in 2024 in this hotel, unable to escape. And now he's like, I don't know what to do. What am I going to do? And he starts looking around and he realizes he's going to have to stay in this hotel for 1 whole year. So now we get to one of the worst parts of this entire episode, storyline B, that is connected to ultimately nothing in the rest of the episode. And I'm just going to bust through like that because, well, it's just him connecting with Anita the whole time, the receptionist of the hotel. So he comes downstairs, says, hey, I'm going to need this room for a whole year. In order to pay for it, do you need stuff done throughout this entire hotel? And she says, yes. So throughout the next course of a year, he does miscellaneous adventures, helps out with the hotel, helps fix stuff, connects with Anita. They have this thing called Chair Day in which they sit down, play games, talk, do whatever. And yeah, and that goes for about 10 minutes or so. I'm going to randomly just pick a time spot from here. So it starts at like 21:37. And when I did the whole calculation and my actual reaction, which you can find over on my locals, it ends about at 29 something. So I'm going to click at 28:23 and we'll see if I'm correct or not. Yeah, about 10 minutes worth of complete nonsense following plot B, which is just Ncuti Gatwa connecting with Anita. So now I'm going to jump ahead because now Ncuti Gatwa has to go to New York so we could participate in the actual story that's going on right now. Again, he spent an entire year and the show gives us 10 minutes of him trying to connect with Anita. Literally just jumped past that because it's just nonsense. And we'll continue with the nonsense because it keeps getting worse as time goes on. So, okay, it's Christmas Eve, essentially, in London. Doctor's leaving Anita. They're having an emotional goodbye for some reason. And then he magically appears in New York City 2025. How? I don't know. He just appears. He leaves London on right around Christmas to go to New York on Christmas Eve to get to the next hotel, to get to the exact room that he needs to go to get back to the time hotel. How? I don't know. It just happens. Plot conveniences. You gotta love them. So, okay, he shows up at the hotel. He gets back to the time thing. He then enters the room when he was supposed to, you know, the whole come in moment. And then the story continues moving forward. And before he leaves, he basically says, hey, you know, you're going to miss her. Take care of Anita. Yeah, that's what he says. So then we get the whole plot on where the numbers came from to make sure that the briefcase doesn't destroy Joy. They come from nowhere. They literally come from the fact that Ncuti Gatwa told Ncuti Gatwa what the numbers were. So now we're in this consistent time loop where the numbers literally just appear out of nowhere. Numbers aren't like mathed up by Ncuti. He doesn't find like any codes and realize, oh my gosh, it said it right here the entire time. No, he just knows it. The universe told him what it was. That's not how that works. You need a justification for knowing these numbers because now you have an entire plot hole of he just knows the numbers for the sake of knowing the numbers. That doesn't work that way. And it's like, well, I remembered it because he told me, but where does the numbers start? This is the whole reason time loops are stupid. Where do the numbers first come from? How do you figure out where the numbers are? Well, I mean, you told me what the numbers were, but how did he know what the numbers were? Well, it's a time loop. So everybody just knows where the numbers are, but nobody knows where the numbers came from. That's kind of paradoxical. But the thing is They also answer why there's no paradox system here, but they couldn't do that at the very beginning of the entire episode. They just say, well, because all timelines are happening at the exact same time, it's paradox proof because it was designed to do that. You should have told us that at the beginning of the entire episode. You shouldn't have waited until basically over halfway through the episode to tell us why there can't be a paradox here. But the problem is there's still a paradox. Where do the numbers come from? They just appear. Okay, I guess. I have no way to argue against this because the only argument they give is, well, the universe had just appeared and nobody complains about that. Well, that doesn't also work as well because the universe didn't just appear. It was just a perfect connection of things that led to it appearing. Where do the numbers come from? We don't know. So time keeps moving on, and Joy's back under the mind control of the briefcase and is walking on to try to figure out how to get the thing to work. But the doctor now understands what the briefcase is actually supposed to do, and it's supposed to create a star. And it's got to be the perfect area because, well, it's a time hotel. Obviously, you're going to make a star here at the time hotel because you could just pick a room and then pick it back up, microwave it, not a star. Simple enough. Then Shooty is trying to now break Joy out of the mind control. And in order to do that, this is a decent callback. He knows that he has to instigate serious emotions from Joy. Problem is, how he gets there is so rickety, but I will say this is part of the plot that I do kind of enjoy, and I feel like they fumbled the ball on hardcore. So in order for him to basically break Joy out of the connection, he starts saying that, well, I spent a year in the room that you chose on Christmas Eve, and that tells me everything I need to know about you because you chose this room on Christmas Eve, even though, I mean, you don't normally choose rooms at hotels. They're usually chosen for you. All you get to say is it a single room or not, or where you might want an overview or something like that. But yes, she chose the room even though the room was assigned to her. And he said, from this room, I deduced that you were a very sad person. You're a very sad, awful person that, everybody feels sorry for you. And was your mom just making fun of you when she named you Joy? I mean, you're pretty much you're not a joy. You're lonely. You're sad. You're pathetic. And Joy starts, snapping out of it. He starts talking about her mom more. They walk through a random door into another area. The briefcase unlocks it, and then we get an actual decent plot point and character development for Joy, where she said that her mom died on Christmas, and that's why she was at the hotel. She cannot be at home on Christmas because it's so painful for her. And as she starts crying, we find out how her mom died. She died in 2020 on Christmas during the lockdowns. And the way Joy said goodbye to her was over the iPad. And she was so broken because she followed the rules. She followed what everybody told her to do. And you can see the little bit right here. They're actually calling out the people they should call out. And they're dancing and their parties and listening to them. She brings up their wine cellars. She brings up everything that the people that locked us down were allowed to do, but we had to follow the rules. And Joy was forced to not even be by her mother's side when she died due to the lockdowns and the pandemic. She followed the rules, but everybody else didn't get to follow the rules, and she feels like she let down her mother, and that's why she's so sad and depressed right now on Christmas, and why she has to be in another area outside of her own home. That's an actual good plot point. That's good character development. And this is an actual thing that should get called out more in our modern media, but never does. And then whenever it does get called out, you're immediately called a denier. You're called a conspiracy theorist, so on and so forth. And I love that they called it out, but I feel like they dropped the ball because Joy says she feels like she let her mother down. And what I would have really loved is for Shooty Gatwa to say, you didn't let her down. They let your mother down. You did everything right. You followed the rules. You followed the BS rules that they laid out in front of you, and your mother died. You didn't let her down. They let you down. They let her down. They did this to you. People in charge did this to you. The people that were establishing these rules did it to you. I thought that was an actual good plot point, character development, and like something that does need to be said, but they fumbled the ball by just leaving it as Joy feels like she blames herself, and they never move on from that. And that does hinder it. That does hurt it. And a plot point that is really fucking good, they just leave it at that. But that's because if you make a decision, you're taking a side. And you can't take the wrong side, even though everybody knows what needs to be said. So I feel sorry about that. But through all this emotion, broke Joy out. He said, moms really are awesome, aren't they? She saved you. The emotions you feel from her saved you. And that, again, that's a good point. You could have just said, and you didn't let her down. They did. I'm going to harp on that because that really broke me. That like this whole moment actually does impact me. And I thought, yeah, we all hear the stories about what happened back then. And yeah, there's things that need to be remedied. And it is what it is. But they then continue with the story. Again, this is the doctor. Should be able to figure out where the hell he is with the snap of a finger just by being there. But okay, briefcase is down. We then get Stephen Moffinism, in which out of the blue, we're now anti-corpo. And again, this is also being streamed on Disney Plus, so anti-corpo while all at the same time being connected to one of the biggest corporations in the entire universe. Good move. So, okay, he's anti-corpo now. He's trying to figure out who the bad guy is. And he does the whole thing, and he finds out it's Villengard, and we see the Silurian is now communicating with him and saying, we're trying to make a star, personal energy system. Again, told in some trailers and stuff like that. Doctor's like, well, you can't do that. You need 65 million years to do that. You can't do that here. So why are you even here? Why are you even trying this? You're going to destroy everybody for no apparent reason. And then it gets revealed there's 65 million years in the past because there are dinosaurs around. They're either in the Jurassic, or one of the times with dinosaurs around. So yes, 65 million years are gonna pass. Doctor should have been able to figure that out, but he was too busy not being the doctor and being Shurigatwa. So, okay. So T-Rex eats the briefcase, becomes under the control of the briefcase, still keeps trying to kill them. They escape, and now they're here, back in the time hotel. So now they're trying to figure out how do they get to the briefcase, because now somebody's going to obviously have to pick up the briefcase because the star's about to bloom, and they need to find it. So how are they going to do that? Well, magically, Trev saves the day. Yeah, because the psychic thing, the graph that was going to help him communicate with the doctor was still on him when he died and was uploaded into the star. So now he's connected to the Villengard systems and connected to the star. So he's going to help save the day by telling the doctor where the star is. And that's kind of what happens there. I don't know how this all happened. I don't know how this all worked, but he tells the doctor where the star is. So they go to the room with the star in it, and they're like, okay, we need to fix this. We need to save this. How long do we have? Look, for some minutes. Doctor's struggling to get it open, unable to do it. 4 minutes left. And he says, I need rope. I need to go back to where I can know where rope is. And he goes back to base camp to get the rope, to get a hook. And when asked about it, he says, why are you taking our equipment? Well, it was just there. Okay. He then goes back to the Orient Express because he's going to do a whole thing there to try to save the day. Uses the Orient Express to basically break open the tomb seal and stuff. And that's how he saves the day. And we see Joy walk up to the Star Seed and go like, okay, I'm going to help save you now. Okay. And then get the whole, hey, reveal that the girl in the Orient Express is a lesbian. Oh, okay. Out of the blue. We then hop back to where the Starseed was. Shooty's there, enters the room, finds that the Starseed thing is broken and the Starseed itself is gone, and then is like, okay, where is everybody at? Where's Joy? What's going on? So then he walks upstairs, and we see Joy is about to assist in the creation of the star, and the doctor's like, don't do it, you're gonna die. And she's like, I'm not gonna die. I'm gonna become a star. And I'll say, okay, this ending, everything is a mess. This whole episode is a mess. Every ounce of this episode is a disturbing mess, nonsensical plot. It's all over the place. It's not a good episode, but I do like the ending. And I do find it super wholesome, actually, even though it's a little twisted, but I do like what they do here. Ultimately, Joy's now somehow magically uploaded herself to the star, and the star is somehow sentient. Don't know how, don't know why. It's magical, sentient, science powers. So now Joy is going to assist with the star being born, and the star's good now out of the blue after killing a bunch of people, and is gonna go up into the sky. And as it's all doing it, she's also saying, you know, doctor, you also were in, you know, the system in my room for a year. You said that I'm a sad person, but you're also a super sad person. So you need to, you know, move on and stuff. And then as things are going on, she's like, hey, we're no longer in Villengard. We're going to go up, become a star. So she goes and does that. Star is happening. Everybody's happy. Doctor doesn't save the day, but we go through like all the time periods we saw, and everybody's like, there's still hope, there's still joy. We see everybody kind of looking up at the star, smiling, feeling happy. Everybody's good. We even see Millie Gibson looking up at the star, being all happy and, calling her mom. And then we see Anita looking up at the star, remembering the doctor. All of a sudden, the Time Hotel people come in and goes like, hey, you came recommended, highly recommended. Here you go. You want to work at the Time Hotel. We then see Anita saying goodbye to her mom. And there's a little twisted here because I think the implication is Joy killed her mom, because we're here at the hospital saying goodbye. She looks up at the star and then becomes one with the star. I think Joy killed her mom. Don't know. Either she killed her mom or her mom died and then became part of the star. I don't know. Weird, timey-wimey magic garbage going on right now. So that's happening. But I will say it is ultimately wholesome because everybody's looking up at Joy the star. It's the North Star. It's actually kind of a nice point, and it ends on kind of a nice wholesome point. I'm not gonna lie, I find this whole little bit here wholesome. The whole episode's a mess. It's tiresome, but the end is what every prediction said it was gonna be. And it was pretty obvious she became the North Star because he looks down and goes like, oh, of course, you're Joy. And we find out that she became the North Star in Bethlehem on Christmas when Jesus was born. And that's the end of the episode. So again, I like the ending. It's wholesome. It's nice. It's sweet. Don't know if Joy killed her mom or not, but they're at least together. The ending's good. I'm gonna say you actually nailed the ending. The only other plot point I think you fumbled the ball on was the whole, lockdown situation, was people not being able to see their loved ones on Christmas, people not being able to say goodbye to their loved ones. I think you fumbled the ball because Joy blamed herself for that moment. Should have said it was not Joy, it was the people that imposed those rules on you and then didn't follow them themselves. The rest of the entire episode is just a mess. Plot-wise, why things are happening, what's going on. I still don't know why people's eyes were magically lizard-like. I don't know why the briefcase was jumping from person to person to person. I don't know what's going on here. And on top of that, if you needed 65 million years for the star to actually become a star, why the heck is it now at Bethlehem? Because even Joy said then it should be going off in 2024, but it doesn't go off in 2024. It goes off when Jesus is born. So even your own time systems don't work. The whole temporal loop stuff that goes on where the numbers just come out of nowhere, that doesn't make sense. The random hatred for big mega corporations out of the blue doesn't make sense. Nothing here really makes sense. And I still like the ending. I will say the ending's actually wholesome. The ending's actually nice. It's kind of heartwarming when you actually sit around of it. There's like 2 ultimate points in this entire episode I like. All in all, though, I will also continue. Stephen Moffat is a better writer than RTD, because if you actually take a look at what I was complaining about in this episode, no real overt politics. I could point out mansplaining, hatred of men, and like for brief moments, but then it moved on. Random anti-corporation stuff, but then it moved on. That's about it. I guess there's some gay stuff here or there, but it's not really shoved down your face. It's just more annoying. It doesn't really fit. Episode's ultimately not super offensive, just not a good episode. But when you get a look at like RTD's writing, when he did the last year's Christmas special, that was more than just a mess. It was all around a garbage episode. And people really did criticize it because guess what? The doctor doesn't really save the day. He just commits mass genocide. He isn't the doctor because he's Shurigatwa. And it's just awful. Everything that Stephen Moffat has touched has at least been decent. And that's like very low bar decent. It's like somewhat watchable, even though it's a complete mess. But everything RTD touches turns to complete garbage. So I can at least give it props for that. And I can at least give it props for having a nice, wholesome ending. But guess what? All the people that hate that it has a nice, wholesome ending are all the people that are ranting and raving right now. Because there are people actually furious. And I'm going to pull up an example of that real quick because it is weird. We could come right on over here. This is a screenshot of Mr. TARDIS actually criticizing Stephen Moffat for having a nice, wholesome ending. Stephen Moffat, after adapting Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Time Traveler's Wife, and Dracula, wondering what public domain staple he can plant his flag into next, the bloody Bible. It's Christmas. Jesus was born on Christmas. She becomes the North Star. It's actually a pretty wholesome moment for a Christmas special, but because they even touched it at all, the stands, the current fans of everything hate it. because it even touched the Bible. I was expecting something cringe and crazy because they were all saying that they were going to do something with Jesus in this episode. And it was actually well done, well written, and wholesome in that final moments. And I liked it, but they hate it. Kind of tells you what the current state of Doctor Who is. Anything RTD touches is pure garbage, and they'll eat it up all day and maybe criticize them here or there. But Stephen Moffat touches one little thing about the Bible, not even like overtly showing anything, just saying, "Hey, it's Bethlehem on Christmas." They're furious with it. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me get your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it out, friends, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell for every time I put out a new video go live, guys. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.